All right, hello and welcome to this video on Weaver's Will, which is a new mechanic that's coming to last Epoch in 0.9.1, which, if you don't already know, is on May 25th, so less than a week away. This was a surprise to many. Did not expect this mechanic, but let's talk about what it is, how it works, and my general thoughts on it as we know it in this post, which of course has only so much information, so there's going to be some speculation in here. Okay, so Weaver's Will is a new unique item type. It is a certain kind of unique, so uniques that have Weaver's will always drop with Weaver's Will, and it's kind of like a competitive, it's kind of competitive with legendary potential insofar as they're filling a similar role. So where legendary potential would normally be, like on this shield here, Weaver's Will is here in its place. So Cradle of the Erase is a new unique, and it will always drop with Weaver's Will, and it will only ever drop with Weaver's Will. It will never drop with legendary potential. So it is going to fill a similar role to legendary potential, and in fact it even makes legendaries just like legendary potential does. However, it makes them in a very different way. So the way that it works is the item will drop with anywhere between 5 and 28 Weaver's Will. The amount of Weaver's Will it drops with determines the total number of tiers of affixes that it will add to the legendary. So, for example, this item starts off with 22, and by the time they're at the far end of this, they only have 2 Weaver's Will left, but they've added on 18% increased mana regen, 85% increased damage over time, block chance, block effectiveness, and health. And I believe that this one, the damage over time and the block chance, are exalted tier 6s. This one I believe is a tier 5. This is, I think, like a tier 2. So there are only 2 more Weaver's Wills available. If this might be a tier 4, tier 5. So they'll continue to level this up, so to speak, until they get down to 0 Weaver's Will, which means they'll have 2 more tiers that they can add to this item. So it starts like this. At some point here, they've spent 5 Weaver's Will and gotten 5 total tiers to get their mana regen, damage over time, and block chance and block effectiveness. As they continue to level the item, it has gone all the way up to here where it's got 4 affixes and I think 2 with exalted. And it's a pretty crazy item. All right, so how do you level these items? The answer is you put them on. So in this case, you'd put this ring in a ring slot and you kill enemies. And it's kind of like people have compared it to incubation and PoE. It's kind of like that, but you're incubating affixes on the item. And so as the item levels, it will add a new affix or tier to the item, and it'll continue to do that until you run out of Weaver's Will. So that is the general idea of how to make one of these, but what affixes go on it and how do you determine what affixes go on it is probably the next big thing that players are going to need to know. And the answer to that is it's more or less random. It's not entirely random. Let me bring this back up. But as far as this item getting the 2 prefixes, the suffix, eventually the 2 prefixes, 2 suffixes, and getting mana regen, damage over time, block chance, and health, that is determined by RNG. It rolls through the potential affixes that exist for the item type. So a ring will only get ring affixes, a body armor will only get body armor affixes, boots will only get boot affixes. So generally RNG, you have no control over that. There is a bit of an exception, which is rarer affixes on most item types are more likely to roll on a Weaver's Will than they would naturally. Boots apparently are an exception to this. But overall, you're more likely to get rare affixes over the more common affixes, but you have no control over that whatsoever. That's the important thing to know. You have no control over that. So you'll put on, for example, if you get this 22 Weaver's Will font of the Erased, you will put on the ring, you will level it, and then you'll go and see what affix was added. And every level you'll see, okay, did it add another affix? Did it add a tier to an existing affix? But you'll have no say in what it gets added. So this is kind of like a hunt. You're finding items with Weaver's Will, and you are then putting them on, upgrading them by killing monsters, and checking to see what affixes you get and whether or not it's worth continuing to push that item to see if you're going to get a really, really awesome item, or at least one that's useful. So I think it's a pretty cool system. The one thing that I'm worried about with it, well, let's say there's two things. One is that the uniques are already kind of hand chosen that have Weaver's Will, and I really hope that they're good enough to actually care about. So the ones we're seeing here seem to be kind of marginal. Like I can see an argument for fun of the erased on some builds, especially with increased health and mana. This shield is likely not very good. There's one scenario where you can build enough golden aegis, which is the thing that gives you like a chance per block, to a block chance per stack, to make it good, but we just don't know what the cap is on this. But we've only seen 2 items so far. If there's not like a lot of exciting items, they might not be a very good chase, at least at first. I imagine they'll add more items as it goes, and eventually we'll have some good chase items, so that's like a temporary issue. My bigger concern though is with the Weaver's Will numbers that are being added. So we have anywhere from 5 to 28. If you get a 28 Weaver's Will, you're guaranteed 4 tier 7s, and that's sick. That's a really cool item that I want to try and, you know, turn into a tier 20 and see what happens. Like, I'm really excited if I get that item, even though I don't know what the affixes are. However, the history of last Epoch in EHG with drop rates for really crazy good items, I don't know how else to put it, it's atrocious. It's really, really bad. Multi-tier, double tier, triple tier 7, triple tier or quadruple tier 7 exalteds don't exist in the game. Even generally triple exalteds technically exist, but very few happen. I've never seen a 4 exalted item, and more concerning is how legendary potential has been treated in the game, where there are literally 4 LP items, at least one, I think 2, that have a 1 in 16 quintillion chance to drop. And that's absurd. It's never going to happen for anyone in the history of the world. And so if they maintain that kind of drop rate craziness on these items, I think they're going to miss. They're just not going to be fun to farm, because you won't be seeing the higher Weaver's Will enough to even like take shots at it. That's the big thing about this system, is they've moved the RNG over to the actual affixes. How many affixes, or what, not how many, but what affixes end up on the item become outside of your control, which means you're kind of like playing the lottery every time you put one on, level it up. Is this going to end up giving me the right affixes to be a fun item, or is it going to be a, you know, kind of a crappy item? For that to be a fun mechanic, you have to have enough shots at potentially exciting items, which means like 20 plus Weaver's Will, things that can actually give you exalteds with other really good affixes, really powerful things potentially. Because if I roll 1 or 2 bad affixes, it might be a trash item, even if it's high Weaver's Will. And so I need to have enough shots to actually get good affixes on it. And if I'm seeing 1 in 16 quintillion drop rates in the very best stuff, or even like exponentially lower than that, taking it into the, you know, billions or hundreds of millions or even tens of millions, hell, even the millions, we're never going to see the items. And so it's not going to be even fun to try to make a great one, because you're not even going to have any shots at it. So that's my big concern about the system. I really hope they don't do that. I hope they use this system to start to play around with realistic drop rates at the very deep end game, and that this system comes out and like we're seeing relatively lots, not like crazy like it's raining from the sky, like candy, not that candy rains from the sky, but that we're not seeing crazy amounts of these, but we're seeing enough to where we're like, okay, I can take a shot at this one. All right, here's another one. Let me take a shot at this one. And eventually you come up with something insanely cool and you're really excited about it. I really hope the excitement isn't lost in the drop rates like it has in some of the other systems. So that's my big, like, we'll see what happens. But overall, I think this is a really cool concept. And it looks like it's going to be tied to something else later. In the comment section, someone asked, okay, well, what's the Weaver? Who's this Weaver person? They said, oh, it's coming later. We'll tell you about it later, whenever, you know, whatever happens. So it looks like there's more to this system, but I think it's a pretty cool idea. And I just really hope they nail it on launch and they make it something that's fun for chase. And so that's how it works. It's just like, it's a new legendary pathway to making cool legendary items that you spend a different kind of investment on, which is your time by putting the item on instead of going through Julra and putting Exalted in. So let me know how you guys feel about it. Do you like it? Do you think it's cool? Are you worried about crazy drop rates? Do you think it's going to be fine? Also, these could be really great for leveling too, because it looks like we no longer have a level requirement increase on legendaries, which is awesome. We also have confirmation from Mike that that's going away, and these items seem to be the first display of that. So these could be really crazy good leveling items too, which could be fun. So yeah, let me know how you feel about it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great time in Last Epoch. I look forward to seeing you real soon, especially in 0.9.1.